Welcome to the show, Ryan Cote with Ballantine.
Thanks, Tersh. Happy to be here.
So, on today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about transitioning kind of the generations from going from one owner to a son or a grandson or a nephew, and how that transition has worked within your company. And in our industries, the services industries, is not uncommon for a son to take over their dad's plumbing company or electrical company. And sometimes I'll have people reach out to me and kind of ask for advice. Well, I honestly can't give advice on that because that's not something that I've experienced. My dad was a welder and a boilermaker for the union, and so he didn't have the business that I took over. And so transitioning from the business owner's son or daughter and then into the new owner or partner, that's not something that I've experienced before. So I'm honored to have Ryan on the show today because he's kind of experienced that, and not only that portion of it, but he brought in new things to the business whenever he came on board, and that's something that I feel like I would go through if my dad was doing something. I know that it would be very paper based, and when I come in, I'd want to be paperless pretty much, and that's how our company is. Icebound is 100% paperless, and so I couldn't imagine having to make that transition. So thank you for coming on the show, and I guess give us a little bit of background on you and a little bit about Ballantine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're based out of New Jersey. Personal note: I'm married, three daughters, and yeah, live and work in New Jersey. So Ballantine. So I'm third generation, and we go back to 1966. So I definitely talk on this topic because my great
Mm.
uncle started the business in '66. His brother, my grandfather, started in '68. My father in '78. My uncle in '84. And fast forward to today, my father retired 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago.
Mm.
And now myself, my two brothers, and my uncle are partners in the agency. And my cousin just joined 6 months ago.
Oh,
My
nice.
uncle's son. So now there's five Cotes in the business. Actually, and my other cousin is coming to intern in the summer. So soon there's gonna be six of us here.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. So it's
So with that being said, like when you came on board, what were there any changes being made whenever you came on board, or was it were you kind of like an apprentice and you just like learned what they were doing?
Yeah, so actually, it's kind of it's sort of different. So my brother Matt, he joined maybe 3 months before I did, or 6 months, and so we
Mm.
started out just doing direct mail. The company just did direct mail marketing. Now we do direct mail and digital marketing, but we started out just doing direct mail. And my brother Matt went to school for printing, went to RIT for printing, so he knew he was going to be in the family business. I
Yeah.
got a marketing degree, and I did not have plans. I had two jobs before, and I wish I could remember, because I love talking about this. I wish I could remember my thought process. I think I think I saw my brother Matt in the business, and it
Mhm.
just got me thinking like, it might be cool to work with my family. Um, and so I just I just brought the idea to my father and my uncle, who were partners in the business then. And
Uh-huh.
back then they didn't. This was 2003. Back then they didn't have a
Mhm.
marketing person, so they literally they got their business from referrals and just outbound sales, and just hitting the pavement.
Oh.
And so they did no marketing. They were starting to do a little bit of trade shows, uh, but there wasn't like a concentrated effort on running advertising campaigns, and you know they didn't have anyone doing marketing. So when
Yeah.
I came to them with the idea of working for the company, obviously the role for me would be marketing, sales and marketing. And so when I came on board in 2003, they sort of created a role for me as like marketing director. I was really like marketing coordinator
Mhm.
because like I just was starting out, but by default I was marketing director. Um,
Yeah.
and and so that was a whole new role for the company. So for the first time ever, they had someone that was solely focused on marketing the agency, running the trade shows, putting together marketing kits for them, and running advertising campaigns in Google, and we just did a whole bunch of things. And so that was pretty cool for them. Pretty cool that that they created the role for me so I can join the family business, and that my role then morphed into other things. To today, mainly just digital, but running the digital division. Uh,
Right. So on the marketing side, you were marketing the company, not necessarily providing marketing services for other people.
exactly. I was marketing Ballantine. Getting leads, trying to
Gotcha.
get leads for the
Okay.
company that then my brother Matt or my uncle John or would try to close as a client. So I was generating leads.
Gotcha. Totally makes sense. So was there a large transition coming in, moving towards the digital space?
Not initially. So this was 2003. For the first 10 years,
Mhm.
I was the marketing director. So nothing with digital. So I've always
Mhm.
dabbled with digital on the side. I've had my own
Gotcha.
e-commerce store selling piano lamps. Believe it or not, I do not play piano. It was just an experiment. So I sold piano lamps.
Yeah.
I've done SEO. I've written my own ebooks. I've sold things on eBay. So I and that I started that stuff like 2000. So for a few years before,
Uh-huh.
I was dabbling in digital. Before I started at the company, and then fast forward to like 2013, I just brought the idea of adding digital services to the company, and uh, they were interested because they knew like everyone says direct mail is dead. It's not dead. It's just changing. We still do a ton of it.
Right.
And but I think my dad and my uncle, they saw like the vision of the company that we should probably expand into other areas, not just rely on print. That we should get into print and digital. I think it
Mhm.
also helps too. Like
Mhm.
my dad and my uncle are very entrepreneurial, and there's like a 15-year age gap between my dad and my uncle. So like I think my uncle too, like
Oh,
he was
okay.
a lot younger, so I think he kind of got it. But my dad got it too. He saw the vision because he's always thinking about like what new things can we bring clients and what have you. So it wasn't like a
Mhm.
big hard sell, but the way I did it was I just present the idea like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm doing search engine optimization on the side, and I know it pretty well at this point. And so I think we can offer this to our clients, offer it to bigger clients,
Yeah.
offer it as a service. So I think the takeaway there is that I didn't just come to them and say, hey, let's hire 5 to 10 people and we're going to offer SEO and social media and pay per click. And we started kind of
Yeah.
slowly, like it'll be me handling it, and then we'll just do SEO.
Uh-huh.
And of course, then my challenge was then I had to handle the marketing and then also offer and deliver SEO and pretend that it was literally just me in my office as like the digital agency.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started.
Well, that's the beauty about, the internet is that as long as you word things correctly and, uh, the perception can be there very easily as far as being a little bit larger than what you actually are, and not to be in a malicious way, but just because some people, they just can't wrap their heads around, if it's just one person doing something, they need to feel like there's a whole team backing that
Exactly.
person
And,
up.
and, I, and I, one thing I had going for me is that, Valentine's been around since 1966. So when I was approaching clients,
Mhm.
we already had their trust. I mean, they looked at us, at us as like the direct mail production company. So there was sort of like an identity
Yeah.
thing there where we were trying to make them see us as both. Um, but then obviously
Mhm.
for cold leads, I wanted to I wanted to know it wasn't just me. Like yes, it was just me providing the services. I had a little bit of help like from freelance contract help. But I wanted them to feel comfortable that they were going to get a good service and that it wasn't just me working out of a small office.
Yeah. I totally get that. So back in '66, what exactly would your grandfather have done as far as
I don't think they
marketing
did
goes?
anything. I mean, it was all just him just
Okay.
making phone calls, um, uh, yeah, making phone calls and referrals, and really honestly just hustling. And
Yeah.
my dad, like when he
Yeah.
started, you know, he's he was a really good salesman, and
Uh-huh.
but he also just worked crazy hours, literally like 100 hours a week, just making calls, going seeing people. I mean, obviously it was a lot different back then. They didn't have email, they didn't have FedEx where you could deliver something
Right.
overnight
Right.
to someone. So it was much more manual process. But he was working like 100 hours a week, and um, back then with direct mail, you would have to like deliver it's called proofs, like the job, like they have to like the client has to see the
Mm,
proof before we print it. They had to prove it,
mhm.
and it was like nowadays you could just email them a PDF. Back then you had to. I don't. Do you remember Columbia House? Remember they used to be a
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
gigantic client for us back in the 80s or 90s. I can't remember, but we used to print up all those stamp sheets that you would have to like peel off, lick, and put on the mailer to send back
Yeah.
to get your CDs. We used to do all those, and so it's
That's funny. Yeah, and it's funny that you take the things we take for granted now, like the PDF, just shooting over an email with a PDF version versus having to actually go in person to hand deliver something if they're locally, or have to mail it, snail mail, to get it over to somebody to get approval. And then if there's revisions, that's another mailer back out again. So yeah, that's crazy. So what advice would you give somebody if they're coming into the business like you or your cousins or anybody, and one of your, um, I don't know, your uncle or your dad or your grandpa own the business? Like, can you give some advice on how to make that transition
yeah, I think,
smoothly?
if I think back to when I presented the idea for digital, it's really a few things. You have to, I think, start small, and then have your
Mhm,
plan well laid out and well thought out, and then sell them on the vision. It's like the vision here was that digital is getting bigger and bigger. It's only going to keep on growing, and here's the vision. Like we could start off with SEO, but then
mhm.
eventually, when we can afford to hire people, we can have a whole team of digital specialists, which is where we're at now in 2019. So for me, I just
Yeah.
it's really being a salesperson. Like you're selling no matter what you're doing. In this case, you're selling your father, or your uncle, or your grandfather, or whatever, on what the plan is. Starting small, selling them on the vision, and then laying out how it's going to work. Like here are the steps that we're going to take to get to where we need to be.
Yeah, I like that because, you whenever you actually have to put pen to paper, some of the things that are rolling around in your head are it's kinda hard to get out, and when you have to sell, like you said, sell yourself to them and sell your idea to them, and you create that plan and everything, and you don't go in there cold turkey and just, like, have the conversation without having, like, actually planned it out, like, be the devil's advocate beforehand because, they may present a lot of things, and it may become a tense situation if you haven't thought it out
Exactly,
already and
yeah,
done a
because
lot of
first
planning,
impressions, like if this is the
beforehand.
first time you're presenting the idea to them, like, you want that first impression to be really strong, and I would also recommend. So you know, as a company, we would do like strategic planning sessions, and so we were always kind of thinking about the future, and so this kind of just tied nicely into the future because we wanted it to be our future.
Yeah, it sounds like y'all were really, like you didn't have a lot of opposition as far as some people I talk to, their dad is giving them the business over, or he's trying to retire. He's coming to the point to where he's gonna retire, and he wants his son to take over the business. Um, but the way he's always done it has worked fine, and there's no reason for him to change. And paper invoices that are floating around and vendor tickets that are floating around in the truck, have worked fine for the past 30 or 40 years. So why spend the money on using a digital CRM, or why do we need to now spend the money with a digital marketing agency to increase our SEO rankings when word of mouth has worked for us for the past 40 years? That conversation can be difficult to have with somebody who absolutely isn't looking at the future as far as
And
change
that's the
goes.
that's the thing here. It depends on this depends on the situation. It depends on the relationship that you have with the family. So like in our case, I'm
Yeah.
lucky that we all have a good relationship, and so um, obviously my job of selling it was a lot easier versus what some other people might have to um, deal with. But
Yeah.
I think I think in
Seems that way for sure. So on the digital side, if somebody was presenting something to their family member and that person has never done digital, maybe they're still spending $2,500 a month in the yellow pages. um, what would you say to them to present to that family member? Like how do you have that conversation?
Well, so
in your
actually,
opinion?
you made me think of a situation. We have a client, and they're a family business as well, and they do home improvement, and
Hmm.
so similar, kind of goes hand in hand with what you're saying. So um, the main owner, they so
Yeah.
all their marketing was like space ads, print ads, et cetera, and that's what
Right. Yeah.
the main owner, I won't mention names, but he was
Yeah.
comfortable with. He's what he knew. It's what
It's
Yeah,
what's
it's
always
pretty
worked
much
for
always
him.
what it worked. Could be better, yeah, but knows when he puts out a
Yeah.
printout, he's going to get some calls, and so and then the younger owners, they wanted to start doing digital marketing. And so um, I think it took them a couple of years to kind of wear them down per se. But what we basically did is we came in as a digital agency. I wanted to sell them on the digital. And so we just presented just facts like how many people are going to Google to search, the trends and traffic trends on all the different sites that we put you on, and what we're seeing with other
Hmm.
clients. And then the way that we started with them, it kind of goes back to my story with bringing digital to Ballantine, is that we started small. We said, okay, well, don't scrap all the print ads and space ads. Keep some of it.
Mm.
Like, and they're excellent in tracking everything, so they knew exactly how many leads they were getting per source. So it
Gotcha.
wasn't just like guessing which space ads to keep. They knew like a
Hmm.
certain
Which one made them
what's that
feel good? Which one of the ads
exactly.
made them feel good? I've dealt with that before, where it's like I can tangibly hold this ad in my hand, and so like when that digital ad goes away, it's gone, and so like I feel better about spending this ad or this $1,000 to be in a magazine because I can pick up this magazine and it's there versus spending $1,000 to get the reach out there on a like a SEO, like a pay per click or something like
That's
that.
a good point. The print ad, it's tangible. He could see it in the actual newspaper or the clipper or whatever.
Hmm.
So we basically just kept the print ads that were getting the most leads for them, and the rest of the
Yeah,
budget we just put right into digital. Which, fortunately for digital, everything's very trackable. So, he was very he wanted to see the results, and so after like
yeah.
6 months, we were able to show him, okay, the digital, you're getting this many calls, this many form submissions. So then it became real for him, and then it was like from that point forward. He's been like a real advocate for digital, and so now he's shifted most of the budget towards digital. So it's really just presenting your case, and then just slow and steady easing into it. And then once they see what you see, well, then
Hmm.
you're there, and it's just you know
I like that. I mean, it's that's a really good way of doing things because I have a tendency of kind of coming in full force of just saying, okay, let's this works. Let's just throw $1,000 a month at it or $2,000 a month at it, rather than coming in kind of slow and kind of making sure you track things. I really like to move fast on a lot of things, and so uh, that's a great point. Even for those that aren't like trying to present it to a larger or an older demographic that maybe don't buy into it as fast as I do or
yeah.
we do. So just me personally, I need to test and track, and you know I like that a lot.
Thanks.
Um, so with the I guess with the digital side of things, it doesn't sound like you had very much resistance as far as with your dad and your uncle going towards the digital side. Um, Whenever you were hiring people, was there ever a conversation that you had that was like, let's we don't know that we need to be hiring for digital agents, or we don't need to be hiring digital people. We need to be continuing to hire for the print ad.
Yeah.
Was that ever a difficult conversation or to have with
Yeah, well,
them?
that's such a really interesting question. So I think the biggest struggle. So two things come to mind. The first big struggle I had was that the first year of me doing it, like, I wouldn't say I was lighting the world on fire. I mean, I was still doing marketing for the company, and I was trying to bring in SEO clients and trying to fulfill the work. And we had some clients who we were making some additional revenue, but it wasn't
Mhm.
anything exciting at all. Um, and
Okay.
so that was, I think, a big struggle for me and for them because I sold them on the vision for digital. And then for the first year
Right.
or two, I can't remember exactly, but it was like, it's like, it felt almost like it was like a blip on the radar. And so I was like, and so what happened for me is then my brother Scott came into the family business, and his role was like operations, but also like he wanted to be on the digital side with me to try to grow the business. And so
Okay.
he's got different skill sets than I do. Um, and now I had someone to kind of strategize with and work with. And then
Oh, yeah.
that's when things really started to click. We started getting bigger clients. I remember when we got our first really big client that enabled us to hire our first team member, which was a really exciting moment. And then from there,
Uh-huh.
it just kind of snowballed. Getting new clients and hiring new clients. And now we're up to 10 people on the digital side. The challenge to kind of go into your other part of the question is that the direct mail side and the digital marketing side are very different. Like we can handle on the direct mail side, we're not actually doing the work. We're basically like the middleman, like print brokers. We manage the plans. The
Okay.
clients come to us because we manage the
Gotcha.
plans so they don't have to. So we can handle a lot more work with less people. But on the digital side, it's very manual. We're handling all the work. We have social media in house and the SEO and PPC. We're handling all in house. So we need more bodies to complete the work, and so it's different. It's very different. It's different infrastructure in terms of the team. We just need more bodies to
Yeah.
complete the digital work. So I think that's and my dad's out now, but my uncle, it's different for him because he's used to just being able to handle a certain amount of work on the print side with a certain amount of people, and it's completely different on the digital side. Um,
I could see that totally. So you're like, "Hey, I need to hire another person," and in his mind, it only takes 3 people to do this job, and now you're asking for 5 or 6 people, and it's like, "I can do this with half the
yes,
people." But yeah, no, I understand that
it's
completely. So,
tough. It's tough.
um, I was there ever a time where they were like, "Nah, we're not doing this," or did they always see the results and we're like, "Okay, we got your back."
Um, there's definitely been conversations around just how it works. It's more like educating on. I mean, fortunately, going back to my brother Scott,
Mm,
he comes from his previous job was he was had a very large position with a travel company doing operations and finance. So he was involved in this kind of situation, but on a much larger scale. And so he knows numbers so well that
yeah,
he's able to present. Um, he's able to present like the numbers to them and being like,
yeah,
okay, well, like we're in a situation right now where we're in the running for a client that would force us to hire 4 or 5 people. But so if I said to
gotcha.
my uncle, he'd be like, "Wow, that sounds ridiculous." But Scott can present the numbers. Well, we need these 4 or 5 people because this is the amount of work, this is the amount of gross profit that's going to come in, and it makes sense. And so it's just outlining the numbers at that point. But there's definitely been some conversations because we hired a lot last year, building the team, sort of ahead of the growth, though now we're catching up to it, and it's turning
Mhm.
into a good year. But it's just really presenting the options.
That's scary whenever when you develop that overhead before the work is there,
Yep.
or the profits are there, and then you're like, "It's coming. I know it's coming, and, I promise it's coming." And then you're like, "Okay, it's here. I'm right." And, you never want to have that conversation like, "Oh, maybe you were right. Maybe the work never came like I expected it to come."
Well, the answer there, Tersh, is that he sees that we're very active on sales, going on sales calls, constantly
Oh, that's cool.
prospecting, joining associations, speaking on podcasts. Like our
Yeah,
activity is there. So it's in general, what I found is that activity generally turns into results as long as the activity is the right activity. And but eventually, it might be 90 to 120 days out, but it generally results in new
so I
clients or
think that
opportunities.
the biggest takeaway I think that I've gotten from talking to you about this is that, uh, don't try and come into the process too fast. Don't try and, like, just, um, overload somebody with all this information, but then at the same time, make sure you have all the information that you need and back everything up with numbers. Don't just be an ideas type person where you come up with a lot of great ideas, but you never actually follow through with them. So like once they do give you a chance, when you do start small, make sure you capitalize on that. Don't come into the thought process with like a negative, like all they'll let me do is this small project, like blow that small project out of the water, and then you're going to move up to the next project, or transition a little bit more over into the digital space, or transition a little bit more over into a digital CRM, and slowly work it over that way. And then as they see you have success, they know that your best interest is the company, and so they will um, trust you more, but not necessarily just trust. It's like they have more faith in what your decision making skills are, that they're going to result in profits.
Yeah, I agree. And to add to that, I would say also like and this sort of like sales, I guess, but know like know the personality type of your uncle or father or grandfather or whatever. Know the
Yeah.
personality type. So if they're a very analytical person, they're going to want to see numbers galore. If they're not, maybe it's more about the vision with a little bit of numbers. So you need to know who you're
Oh.
speaking to and how they process information best. Are they visual? Or for example.
Oh, that's a good idea. So, like, have them take a disc profile or something to that effect, or something like that, like the flags or
Yeah.
whatever, profile test, and then it's really cool whenever you see somebody's disc profile, and then you can see if you have some guidance as to how to interact with the person that's a high D, and your personality type and how you mesh together, and the conversations can go more in the directions that you want them to go, because you understand how their mind works.
Exactly. I've taken that before. I'm a steady Eddie. I forget. I think that's S, steady, or I can't
Yeah.
remember, but yeah, I'm like the steady Eddie type. So yeah,
Cool.
take that.
Cool. Sweet. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. If anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? I know we'll have a code that we'll have in the show notes, but for you personally, what's best for them to get in touch with you and Ballantine?
Yeah. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Ryan Cote, COTE on LinkedIn. If you want to visit our website, it's ballantine.com. And then, like you mentioned, there'll be a link in the show notes. And on that page, there's an offer for a free video analysis of your website and your SEO and just overall digital marketing. It'll be me taking a look at your website through screen share and just kind of giving you my feedback and analysis of your website. And no charge for that.
Cool. Thank you so much. The listeners will definitely appreciate that. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate everyone listening.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure. We'll talk again soon. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Service Business Mastery Podcast. The podcast focused on service business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners themselves. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, tersh@icebound.us, or on any social media platform @tershplicit is typically my handle everywhere. Until we talk again next time, have a great week.